And you're live.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the April meeting of the Board Committee on the Board Academic and Student Affairs Committee. I ask the Secretary to call the roll.
Thank you, Chair Bloom. Chair Bloom,
Present.
Regent Budd. Here. Regent Howry will join us later. Regent Porth. Regent Sasanker.
I'm here.
Thank you. And Dr. Jude Taney.
Yes, it's Dr. Jutani. Thank you.
Thank you. Julie Noriega will be absent as well as Brandon Ovani, right, will be absent. We have a quorum. Thank you.
Thank you.
And Noreen, I just want to note that Rick Porth has joined the meeting.
Thank you very much.
First item of business is the approval of the minutes of March 11th, 2022. Is there a motion? Is there a motion to approve the minutes of?
I so move.
So move. Second.
Second.
Good morning.
Any comments on the minutes? All in favor of approving the minutes?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Minutes are approved. Second item, item 2, consent items.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Good. Okay.
Okay, second item are the consent items, discontinuations. Is there a motion?
All now, so
Second. Chair Bloom, if I could just say that Charter
Yes,
is withdrawing the first item, the paralegal studies concentration, from the discontinuation list.
So item A1 is withdrawn. Any other comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Action items, modifications. These are essentially changes from on-ground to on-ground hybrid. There is. Can I have a motion to approve the 4 modifications?
Second.
Second. So move. Second. Okay. Thank you. Comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Second, next item 3B, suspensions. I'm going to ask first for a motion to put these on the table, to have them for consideration.
So moved.
Second. Any second? Thank you. I'm going to ask Provost Kuchnick to talk about these items.
Thank you, Regent Bloom. First, I would like to divide these into 2 blocks, 3B 1 and 2, and that we vote on these. But then 3B 3, 4, and 5 will need an amendment to the resolutions. There was a correction that needed to be made in the date for the expiration of the suspension. The resolutions for 3B 3, 4, and 5 both say spring of 2022, and the documents say that as well, but the resolution really needs to be amended to say spring of 2024. So what I'm going to recommend is that we take action, that the committee take action on 3B 1 and 2, and then amend the following 3 resolutions before taking a vote on them. Pam, I don't know if there need to be a separate vote for the change to the resolution and then a vote on the resolution itself.
There probably should be a vote on to amend the resolution and then the resolution. So the first item for consideration then is suspensions 1 and 2, items 1 and 2 on the agenda.
I so move.
Second,
I'll second.
okay. Comments, discussion? Or, okay.
I want to ask a question. Concentration is a major. Currently, there isn't enough activity. Is that correct, Ken?
Well, I would ask Provost Ferreira to respond to that question, Regent Bud.
Yeah, good morning, Regents. So in regards to these, yeah, these concentrations within our general studies, they've been really not having much enrollment. They're in the low single digits. And so in meeting with our arts and humanities, a lot of these are in the arts and humanities, in meeting with our arts and humanities faculty, what we decided to do is, they didn't want to, necessarily discontinue the programs yet. We wanted to use the period of time of suspension to get together and say, well, what is the future of kind of the arts and humanities within it? And then see if there are some things that might be more relevant as far as that kind of go in with our mission of being a workforce institution. So that's the intention with that period of time with the suspension as opposed to the discontinuation. But yeah, they're in around 1 to 3 pretty much, but within the concentration. So they're not separate majors, so to speak. But that's the way it was kind of formed when Charter Oak was around. Mostly, we only started with the general studies.
Thank you.
Other comments, questions about items 1 and 2 in this section? Okay. All in favor of B1 and 2 suspensions?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We're now B3, 4, and 5. Provost Kuchnick,
You want a motion to?
yes,
Yes, I so move.
okay. The motion is to change the effective date to spring of 24. Second on the motion.
I'll second.
Any comment, discussion on the motion to change the date? Seeing none, all in favor of changing the date on 3, 4, and 5?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Now we have a vote on 3, 4, and 5, or discussion of 3, 4, and 5 as amended. Discussion, comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Okay. Now we're item 3C, new programs. The program of 1, legal studies from Charter Oaks, has been withdrawn from the agenda. So we have the 1 program on the agenda, and this section is C2, Master of Public Administration. Motion to put it out for consideration.
I so
Move.
Second. Okay. Discussion.
I have a question, Ira. Are there other MPA programs in the state at this point? Just curious.
yes.
Provost.
And I'll introduce Provost Bob Prezant to introduce colleagues, answer the question, introduce colleagues as needed. Bob?
Thank you, Ken. Good morning, Regents. We have with us today to answer any questions on this really important and interesting program, the Dean of our College of Arts and Science, Dr. Bruce Kalk, and with him, 2 faculty members who helped develop the program in the Department of Political Science, Drs. Tess Marchand Shapiro and Dr. Jonathan Wharton. So Bruce, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you very much. I would like to begin by addressing the question posed. There are no Masters of Public Administration programs in any of the other CSUs. There is an MPA program at the University of Connecticut. However, it's fairly distant from the New York metropolitan area. We do have a locational advantage. Additionally, our team, and I'd like to introduce Professors Jonathan Wharton and Tess Marchand Shapiro, who can speak in more granular detail to the proposal. Our team did extensive market research, and the demand for hiring MPAs in the state far exceeds the number of MPAs graduating in Connecticut. Thirdly, as a social justice issue, we'll be able to provide a much more cost-effective degree than the private universities in the region, who will be our primary competitors rather than UConn. We'll be seeking accreditation, so the degree will also be more valuable. The University of Connecticut actually has the only accredited Master's of Public Administration program in the state. I just would briefly remind the regents that this degree will lead to leadership positions in careers in government agencies, foundations, nonprofits, and NGOs. Incomes are typically very healthy. And if there are any more granular questions, I would ask Professor Wharton or Professor Martin-Shapiro to address. Thank you.
Regent Bud?
On the UConn program, which your material mentions, but it doesn't say in the past, by the way, when there's been comparatives to UConn as well as other CSDU universities, they indicate the number of enrolled students and the history. And I'd like to know, of course, because of COVID, it's very hard to go back 3 years and make any sense of it. But I'm just curious to know, has it been steadily increasing at UConn? And what is the volume of this program? How many people does, in fact, UConn graduate in this program on a yearly or 3-year basis? Or, you can skip COVID. I don't need to. I am sure that everything is backwards. And my concern is this, that when they graduate, to what extent is the job that you get with a master's of public administration in a foundation or government situation a job that they also hire people with a BS for? I like to see a material difference because it's time and money spent by the candidate. And I want to be sure that when they do this, they're not as knowledgeable as they should be by and large when people get higher degrees. But I'd like to know that they feel when they're finished, this was really worthwhile in terms of the economics and the potential. Yeah, I've given you a lot to respond to.
And I'll ask Tess Martin-Shapiro or Jonathan Wharton to address that. Tess, I think you're on mute.
Sorry about that. I couldn't find the numbers quickly enough on UConn's graduation rate, but my memory, when we did analyze that, and it was steadily increasing over time. They've expanded the program, so there definitely is demand. There isn't a bachelor's degree in public administration, so the standard is that you get a master's of public administration, and it is a very it helps your career tremendously to get it. It's a valuable degree.
And I'll also add to that it's considered a vocational degree more than anything else, more of something related to the professional as opposed to just purely the academic. So one of the things you'll note there in the packet is that we require, as most MPA programs do, that students at least gain that kind of experiential learning through internships and fellowships. And that's a significant experience that many students would get, especially through the MPA program, as opposed to, let's say, a traditional academic master's degree. And actually, we've discovered, Tess and I both, that not surprisingly, a lot of the students at other colleges and universities are already working many part-time or full-time jobs and need the degree. So the great thing about it is that they can get the experience to go along with the degree that they might already have to come to the table.
That's interesting, that they're in the job and they're limited to their advancement because they don't have the degree. And this, I forgot, is this going to be an online degree with the internship?
No, some of the courses are online, but it's an on-the-ground degree, which is why it's regional. It wouldn't go up to Harvard. We wouldn't compete with UConn.
I see. And that making it more online would reach people that are working that need this degree on an easier basis. What is
There are several national programs that are online that students could apply to. So,
in other words, get this degree online outside of the state of Connecticut. which would advance them.
Here.
Dr. Jutani has her hand raised.
Dr. Jutani?
Thank you. I just wanted to add a couple of thoughts as somebody who's worked in healthcare and just what I've seen in hospital administration, which is that I do think for people to advance in the hospital administration realm, that this is a degree that many of them do have. So I think it does add value for people who want to advance in hospital administration. There are people that have MBAs, there are people that have MPHs, but MPHs tend to be a little bit more of a policy and research type degree. And this type of degree for hospital administration, I think does provide, the skills that many people are looking for. And I do think it helps them advance in that way. So I do think it would add something in that realm.
Thank you.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because actually that's something we examined, because it's not unusual. Some programs are MPA, MPHs, as you probably know. And so
Right.
you'll notice with those course offerings, many of them are in the MPH program, which is terrific, because I think many of you all know that their program is new, especially the online one. So this fits right into it, some of those courses, and we're hoping to do more and build out more of that. So this is only the beginning. We're hopeful of that.
Yeah, no, that's great. And I would just say that, you have the data. I'm just telling you sort of experientially what I feel, but I'm glad to hear that, because I think that there are students who don't really know which way they want to go. And so I can see how they might want to do that combined degree or as they're trying to figure it out. But I do think that this is a way that people do advance in that sort of career path of hospital administration. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Jutani. Other comments?
Regent Bloom?
Yes, Regent Porth.
I just want to support what Commissioner Dr. Jutani just said. I happen to have an MPA, and I was glad to see this on the agenda. And I believe, though I earned mine a long, long time ago, it helped me during my career in terms of government service, nonprofit service, and private foundation service. And I do believe that Connecticut is a state that needs more people trained in this way on a number of different fronts, including public health, as Dr. Jutani said. So thank you.
Other comments? I'd like to add something also. I'm somewhat familiar with this from my day job. And I think this is a very important degree for CSCU to have for some of the reasons that Dr. Jutani discussed, and I think for some of the points that Regent Porth made. This is a degree that moves people in reasonably mid-level, high levels into the public service, which is something we should be doing. And more recently, I've seen more people, as Regent Porth said, go into nonprofit groups that are allied in various ways with government agencies with this degree. So I think looking at the long range picture for CSCU, I think it's an important degree for us to have in our portfolio. So thank you I took the privilege of speaking, so thank you. Any other comments? All in favor of approval of C1 Master of Public Administration at Southern? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Item approved. Thank you.
Thank you.
Dr. Jutani, if you're still here, thank you for coming. Okay, we have the next item, D, Connecticut State Community College Policy Recommendations. I think we should deal with these one at a time. So the first item, 521, Policy on Student Rights, Review of Academic Standing. Provost Kuchnick.
Thank you, Regent Bloom. Connecticut State Community College seeks approval of a modification to the policy on student rights. This modification addresses the right of students to receive an appropriately timely response to assigned grade, notation, or other academic decision appeal. Amy Fest, Associate Vice President of Programs and Curriculum, will speak to the request. Amy?
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for having me here today. So as you have before you, we have been working on reviewing all of our academic policies to really ensure that they are appropriate and reflect really best practice as we move forward into CT state. So the first one before you today is the policy on students' rights. So this policy, when we started to really examine it in depth, we realized that what was a policy really instead was much more of a procedure. And we really wanted to break the procedure and the policy apart so that it was more accurate of what the policy should be. And what we also did in the process of doing that is we realized that we really couldn't have one policy for students who wanted to appeal some grade or notation, because we do have different types of students who are looking for different types of appeals. So we are putting forward the concept, and this is modeled after Naugatuck Valley actually, of 3 different appeals based on the time the student needs to get a response. A traditional appeal is a response where the student does not need to, will not be held harmless if they do not have their appeal heard in a timely manner. For example, if I want to appeal my grade in Introduction to Criminal Justice, and the next semester I'm not taking any classes that require that as a prereq class, then it's okay to go with the traditional timeline where that appeal would be heard at the beginning of the next academic semester. However, if I am taking A and P1, and in order to enroll in A and P2 the next semester, my appeal has to be heard and decided before the next semester begins, we then have an expedited process so that we will pull together a committee in a much more condensed time frame using the same standards and ensuring the same rights for the student. But that review would be heard and decided on in enough time for that student to be able to take the next class if that appeal was successful. And then a third type of appeal is a clinical appeal. And a clinical appeal really needs to first go back to the clinical faculty per a lot of their accreditations before it even goes through the traditional appeal process. But second of all, a clinical appeal sometimes has literally mere days that it can be heard, because when students are in clinical, it often is the next clinical is coming up within like a week, and they really need to know whether they can progress. So given all of that, before you is a cleaned up policy that's truly a break of policy and procedure into 2 separate things, and taking into account the 3 different ways that we think students are best served through the appeal process. And I'll take any questions you might have.
Regent Bud?
Not a question, but it's a great job that you really considered the students' needs. That very few people do that.
Thank you.
Doing policy, this is really very, very important. It's life-changing for some students.
Agreed. And we've really tried to look at the policies really through a set of fresh eyes. It's been a really wonderful exercise to stop and go back and look at things that you just normally don't take the time to do. Thank you.
Other comments? Okay. All in favor of D1, policy on student rights, review of academic standing? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Opposed?
Excuse me, Regent Bud, can you hear me? It's Pat.
Yes.
There wasn't a motion?
No, there wasn't. It should be.
Oh dear, my apologies. Okay.
That's okay.
Move to approve D1.
I'll move that.
Second. We've had the discussion, so all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? D1 is approved. Thank you for that. D2, community college honors. Motion to consider community college honors.
So moved.
Second. Thank you. Comments? Provost Kuchnick?
Thank you, Regent Bloom. Connecticut State Community College seeks approval of a modification to the Community College Honors Policy. This modification addresses the criteria for eligibility for Dean's List at the college. Once again, AVP Fest.
Thank you. So just as the former policy, this is one that we had an opportunity to stop and take some really good feedback that we had received over the years from our registrar's office. So over the course of time, we've really changed some of the modalities and the ability of students to take courses in non-traditional terms. For example, they might choose to take a late start class or a course that's a 7-week and a 7-week. And what's happened now is students may withdraw from a class, but then re-enroll in that same semester in another class to maintain their full-time status. And the way the policy was previously written, any withdraw would mean that you were ineligible for Dean's List. And the reality is that many students could withdraw from a course and then enroll in a late start course or enroll in a second half of the semester course, maintaining their full-time status. But the way the policy was written before, they would automatically be disqualified from the Dean's List when they had that withdraw. We also went out and realized that our peers at the CSUs within our own system do not have a withdraw as being a disqualification for Dean's List. And the last thing we want to do is hold the community college students to a higher standard than our university counterparts. So we feel this will help a lot more students to be able to get on the Dean's List that qualify for the Dean's List.
Thank you. Comments?
Just that it sounds like a really good modification to keep students engaged and interested and rewarded for when they do the work.
Absolutely.
Makes
Other
you wonder else is in policies that we are continuing to look at policies as we go forward. Yeah.
I'm on several different committees where we're regularly looking at all the policies right now. So you'll probably see quite a few more coming forward in the future. Anything that's substantial, we will be bringing to the board.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Okay. I think this is an important exercise to as we move forward with the consolidation. So thank you.
Agreed. Thank you.
Any other comments? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Last, the D3 fresh start policy. Provost Kuchnick.
I don't know, Regent Bloom, if you want to put a motion on the table first.
Yes, I do. I'm sorry. Thank you. I don't know why I should have put a motion on for. Thank you. Move to consider D3 fresh start policy.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Thank you. Thank you. Provost Kuchnick, thank you.
Thank you. Connecticut State Community College seeks approval of a modification to the Fresh Start policy. This modification addresses the eligibility requirements for students to request the application of Fresh Start. Please, once again, Associate Vice President Amy Fest.
Thank you for the third time. So this is another policy that we really did rip apart and try to think with a new perspective. So there's a couple of things that were going on with this policy. The first is its name as Fresh Start policy inaccurately reflected the idea that students who came back to a college after a period of time and were not academically successful before they left would get a fresh start in all aspects. And the reality is they do get a fresh start for their grades. Grades are expunged and not counted for their GPA that previously were bringing down their grade point average, but it does not give them a fresh start from financial aid, and it can't due to federal financial aid regulations. So students would think that when they got a fresh start, it was a fresh start academically and financially. We really wanted to be very, very clear with students that that is not the situation. So we're renaming the policy the academic fresh start. And we also put in some mechanisms where when a student meets with their faculty advisor or their guided pathway advisor and has a conversation about fresh start, they're actually going to have to sign off that they realize what they're getting a fresh start on and what they're not getting a fresh start on. And it's still a wonderful opportunity for students, but I just think that there was some real surprises and unexpected consequences because students assumed that they had all of their financial aid back again when they went for a fresh start. The second thing that we wanted to address is the former policy did two things that we felt were not in students' best interest. One, it required a student had to be away from the college for 2 full years before this policy could be considered. And we realized, especially in a world of COVID and a lot of other things that happen with our students, sometimes they don't want to be away for a full 2 years. Sometimes a year is enough just for them to put things back together again in their life. So what this policy does is it actually goes from a 2-year stay away time before Fresh Start can be implemented to a 1. Because before, when you think about it, if somebody came back after 1 year because they had whatever in their life had been addressed and they were ready to come back and re-engage, we actually said to them, sorry, you came back too soon. We can't get rid of any of the mistakes that you made before. And that just seems silly. It's almost like we make you go away for another whole year when you're probably not going to come back at that point. So it takes it from 2 years away to 1 year away. And the other thing that it did was we used to have students have to apply immediately upon reentering for Fresh Start. When we thought about it and we thought a student may come back and think they're ready and then discover that they're really not ready and they would have burnt their Fresh Start option. You can only use Fresh Start once in your academic career at the institution. So what this does is you would need to complete 9 credits and meet with your advisor and have a real conversation. Are you re-engaged? Have you taken advantage of resources? Is your life in a place where you're going to be successful? And if the determination is yes, then we will go through and the registrar will go through and clean up that academic record from before the student re-engaged. If the answer is no, the advice may be to the student, why don't you wait a little bit longer? Things aren't quite at the right time for you to be in college. You thought that things in your life are ready for you to re-engage. Let's not take this one time and have you use your academic Fresh Start and then you don't get to ever have it again. So the 3 things it does, it renames the policy and really makes it much more clear that it's not financial aid. It takes the rule from 2 years to 1 year of being able to apply, and it forces students to go through 9 credits to really show that they're academically ready to re-engage before we take those grades off, which is a one-time opportunity.
Regent Bud, thank you.
Yeah, to explain that last point, let's assume for the moment after 9 credits, they say, I'm not really sure. Let me do another 6 credits. Can they then do it
Yes.
at 15 credits? Yes.
Yes. They just can't do it before those 9 credits are completed.
They can do it anytime after.
Yes.
That's great. That's really flexible.
But they can only do it once. So
yeah, I understand that, but it's a very flexible option. Instead of having to drop out, you don't encourage them to drop out. You, in effect, encourage them to stay on, maybe take a lighter load and see if they can do better.
exactly.
I think that's wonderful. Thoughtful, very thoughtful.
Other comments? I actually have a question too also. When the transcript goes out for a student who's been in Fresh Start to a, let's say a medical school or professional school or to advanced study beyond, what does it show?
So it does show all of the grades, but it shows a little caret, like on a computer, the little upside down V. It shows that next to the grades that are not counted in the grade point average. And that's consistent across all schools. Even when you remove grades, you can't academically alter the transcript to no longer show grades that a student actually completed. And students need to know that, it will absolutely help their GPA and it will help them when they graduate from our schools. But there are other schools, when they transfer who will have access to that information. And there's nothing that we can do about that. That would be altering a student's academic record, which would go against, federal rules.
Yeah, no, that's why I think it's important, because in applying to professional schools, the professional schools recalculate the grades and it will be different from, for those students, it will be different from our GPA.
Absolutely. That's always been the case. And that's really the importance of having an honest conversation with an advisor, based on someone's long-term goals. They need to know that this is a fresh start and it will help you. But it won't necessarily help you in your very long academic career if some of your aspirations are going to be applying to schools. But on the other side of that, I do have to say, I think there's something to be said for the student who realizes that it wasn't the right time for college. They stop out, they come back. I've seen students go from a 1.0 to, after a different point of their life, come back with straight A's and B's. And I really do think that a transfer institution would see that as a student who's really turned their life around and probably shown their grit and their resilience. And depending on the school, depending on what their goals are, depending on their interview, their essay that they write, that could really show somebody who's the type of student who's really going to put in the effort at the next level and really show that they don't just give up and walk away.
Yeah, I think that's an important point, and I think schools do take that into consideration. And that's something that the advisors who write letters on behalf of the students need to emphasize and when who write letters on behalf of the students to professional schools or doctoral programs or whatever need to emphasize.
Absolutely.
Regent Bud?
On the same issue, if I were a student and I had two or three courses that I did terribly in, if I were willing to start all over again, not take credit for anything, it's like going to another school. Could I expunge those credits in any way?
No, not within the schools that you're already attending, and that's just because of federal policy. Once you start at a school, that record stays with you. You'd have to leave and go to a completely different school to start over. But realize that some colleges, when you apply for certain programs, require that you send your transcript from every school you attended.
Yeah.
Okay, so then basically, once you start, so the advisors for the future, I would assume when we do guided pathways, when they see someone is failing, it is much better for them to withdraw and take them incomplete than to take a bad grade, because that bad grade stays with them forever.
Yes, but they do have to be careful because there are some requirements around financial aid, and there are some other, it's really a very, not always an easy answer just to withdraw.
It's
But
complicated.
it is. And you don't want a student who all of a sudden, every time they're not getting an A, to think it's okay to withdraw from a class, because they burn through their financial aid, and they will get to a point where financial aid will begin to deny them from taking classes and being paid for by financial aid. But it also doesn't look great to go to a transfer institution and have 15 W's on your transcript.
No, but if you're a bad student right at the beginning, just withdraw and start next year or 2 years and just see what's happening.
Yes, I would agree with that.
Coursework, but if you see a student is falling apart in the first semester or second semester, it's best to advise them, don't do this. Move on, because for financial aid and for every reason, going forward, you have a much cleaner slate.
Absolutely. And Regent Bud, one of the things that we have a lot of conversations happening now is the ability for a guided pathway advisor to have some conversations with that student to possibly move them into some type of a workforce program, get them employed, and then maybe come back again in a year or so when your life is in a different place, especially if the reason that you're not doing well is financial, that you're holding down 2 jobs that really aren't paying the bills. Let's get you a career and then have you come back when you can actually focus on, what your long-term goal is. So I think there's other options for students than just sometimes leaving. There's things we can do to better their life on the non-academic, on the continuing ed side, and then welcome them with open arms back on the credit side when they're in a better place.
Thank you. It's wonderful that you, as I said before, this is like the print for all these students.
Agreed.
Are there any other comments on this item? Fresh start policy? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Next item is E, Connecticut State Community College Aligned Curriculum. Provost Kutchnik.
Once again, Regent Bloom, maybe you want to put a motion on the floor.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you.
So we remember.
Yes. I'm the one who wants to do it, so I better remember. Motion on the table to move the Connecticut State Community College Aligned Curriculum.
So moved.
Second.
I'll second.
Second. Thank you. Okay. Provost Kritznick, thank you again. And
Thank you. So we've been here before, we'll be here again, but Connecticut State Community College seeks approval for yet another set of aligned curriculum for the college. This set of programs and courses, as I always say, represents countless hours of work by community college faculty and a very dedicated team of alignment managers. As we always emphasize, specific recognition goes to Dr. Fran Rosselli and her team of alignment managers. And Fran will introduce the proposal and answer questions.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you. It is my pleasure to present for you for approval these 32 degrees and certificates. As a reminder, these are all aligned versions of programs that were previously approved by this board and are currently being offered at one or more of our Connecticut community colleges. You know, we've been through this before, so I don't think I need to go into too much detail, but, you know, I always like to point to the process that we use to align the curriculum, which is on page, I think it's 112 of your packet. And I'd like to just point out that I think what's before you today, and actually what isn't before you, is a good example of the fact that this process is actually working. And while I admit that I sometimes curse how onerous it is when I am trying to manage the logistics of it. There were 71 degrees and certificates that the Transitional Curriculum Committee reviewed in late fall of 21, our last 3 meetings from fall 21. Those 71 degrees and certificates went out for endorsement in the earlier part of this semester. That endorsement period closed at the end of February. The APRC reviewed all of that endorsement, and 39 of those programs were sent back to the work group for revision. So what you see here are the 32 that made it through that endorsement process. And I think that's just a testament to the fact that the endorsement process really works, right? The idea of it is to send these out for public viewing, for public comment, to strengthen them. And in that batch of 71, there were many that still needed some work, and you will see them again. Hopefully they'll come back to you in May or June. But it just, again, an example of the process we're using, in this case, really, I think, working. So with that, I'll take any questions if you have them.
thank you. Any questions? Comments? Move to a vote then. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carried. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next item, which is a very nice item, Board of Regents Faculty Awards. Provost Kritznick, do you want to say anything about this?
I do, but I may wait until you put a motion on the floor.
Okay, for motion. I don't know what's happening with me this morning. I apologize to. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Thank you. Thank you again.
Sure.
Maybe I haven't had enough coffee. Provost Kritznick?
Yeah. Motion for Regent Bloom to have more coffee. Do I hear a second?
Yeah, I'm going to do that.
Yeah. Each spring, the Board of Regents recognizes faculty from across the system for excellence in both teaching and scholarly work. For full-time faculty, each school can grant awards in 2 categories, one in teaching and one in research or scholarly excellence. Each of these awardees then becomes eligible for a system award in those categories, and those are the ones you see in front of you. In addition, 2 nominated adjunct faculty receive system awards for excellence in teaching. These awards showcase the excellent work of CSCU faculty, and I ask the committee to approve the nominations and join me in congratulating the recipients. I would be remiss if I did not thank Noreen Wilson, who has an enormous lift in coordinating the collection, distribution, and tallying of all of this work. So thank you, Noreen, for that.
Any other comments? Okay. This is a really this is this is a wonderful recognition. So with all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Okay. Now I'm not going to forget. Is there a motion to move the CSCU Shared Governance Award?
So
So
moved.
moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Provost Kuchnick, do you want to talk about this?
Sure, I hardly know what to do. In addition to the faculty awards, each spring there is an opportunity for the Board of Regents in partnership with the Faculty Advisory Committee to grant a Shared Governance Award. This spring's award goes to Three Rivers Community College for their exemplary demonstration of shared governance practice.
Thank you. And I was one of the two regents on the committee. And along with Regent Howry, and we had two active faculty members participating in this conversation. Okay, so motion to move the item we have. A second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We have informational items that you can see listed. We don't act on them, but they're there for the information of the regents. And if there are any questions about any of them? So we will move on to areas of study update. B. Again, this is an informational item. There is no motion here, but Provost Kuchnick.
Thank you, Regent Bloom. In March 2019, the Board of Regents passed the Areas of Study policy for the future Connecticut State Community College. As part of the annual cycle of reports to the board on policies, Connecticut State will offer an update on the implementation of this policy. AVPs Fran Rosselli and Amy Fest will introduce the proposal and answer questions, or the update and answer questions.
Hi there. Good morning again. Fran, would you like me to start?
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I think this will be quick. Amy can probably handle all of it, but if you guys have any questions, we're both here.
Just wanted to let you know that over the course of the past year, we really have been both refining our areas of study, and we've been working very hard to build the academic side of our house based on our new our areas of study. So we currently have the 6 area of studies, and we are matching all of our curriculum up so that we will be able to have disciplines represented that are appropriate within those 6 areas. We are also in process of hiring our area of study academic deans. The search for that closes today. So we hope that within the next 6 weeks or so, we will be able to actually bring in individuals who will then start to bring together our new academic departments based on the areas of study. We also are working on our admissions and our guided pathways to incorporate areas of study so that students will come in to an area of study that they know they're interested in and have options within that area without losing credits, to be able to move around and to really settle on the right course of study for themselves without worrying about repeating classes or taking the wrong math or those kind of things. The 6 area of studies that were originally proposed have been tweaked slightly. We will be bringing forward a policy soon, hopefully next month, to clarify that. But they're really the same general buckets, but we've just tweaked them slightly. As we started to bring degrees and certificates through, we realized that a slightly difference of the way that they are being proposed makes a lot more sense for students and for structure.
Thank you. Again, this is an informational item, but any comments? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Last item, emeriti. There are 3 recommendations on the calendar, and I actually have a 4th that I want to read, coming from President Chang to Dr. Gamal. So I'll read this into the record. As president of the Connecticut State Colleges and Universities, it is my sincere pleasure and great privilege to bestow upon the title upon you to Professor Gamal the title Emeritus Associate Vice President of the Office of Research and System Effectiveness, with all associated rights and privileges. It is with deep appreciation and respect for your distinguished leadership that I confer this recognition. Not only have you served with the CSU office since 2014, but your service also includes 7 years at Eastern Connecticut State University from 2002 to 2006, and again from 2011 to 2014, and 5 years with the CSU system office from 2006 to 2011. Your decades of work to establish and strengthen CSU's research data and data foundation have helped us better understand and serve our students, and will have a lasting legacy on CSCU. Emeritus status is an honor of the highest order and reserved for those whose service is exemplary. Dr. Gamal, your 20 years of leadership certainly places you in this category. Congratulations and best wishes to you for many years of a healthy and happy retirement. So this is the fourth. This does not require approval, but Provost Kuchnick? You had your hand up, I thought.
No comment. I was just applauding the recognition.
Okay, I was going to ask for people. This certainly deserves a round of applause, so I think we should. These are people who have served the university for a long time and served them well for a long time. So, and I've served our students, which is the most important part of this.
I will just mention that Dr. Gamble is actually watching on YouTube, so he is on the meeting to observe. So I know we don't see him in the list, but I want him to be here to hear that read.
Congratulations to Dr. Gamel. Seeing no further business, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Right. I thank everybody for your attendance and active participation in our April meeting, and I wish you well for the forthcoming holidays. We have a group of holidays coming up, and I hope everybody enjoys them. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye now.